I am Andrew Fantasia.
Rob McDonald.
And this is Vote of No Confidence. Do you know what happens on the show? You tell us this time. Somebody chime in the comments and say what Vote of No Confidence is about, because I want to know if you're paying attention.
We eat tacos non-confidently.
Oh my God. Can that please be a show, James? Can we please do that? No. I quit.
Damn.
What are we voting about today?
Well, we're talking about a certain character, Snoke. That's right, we're talking Snoke. Can you believe it?
Leader Snoke.
The Supreme Leader Snoke, and a specific thing regarding his identity. Is he a Whill or is he not?
Oh, is he one of the Whills, the ancient something or other that started this whole mess? Well, I'm going to say that yes, he is a Whill, because that's what the coin told me to say.
The coin told me to say no, he is not a Whill.
Ooh.
So, you start off. Let's see what you got. Well, put your cards on the table.
To start off, God, I wish I had a taco right now. I guess I should start off by kind of getting into what I think the Whills are, because nobody's really clear on that yet. Everybody's got their own idea. So I think the Whills are essentially like how we have the whole sort of legend here on Earth, which may or may not be true, that the ancient Egyptians were visited by beings from other planets or other times or other dimensions or something with more technology than they had back then on Earth, that showed them, hey, this is how you build pyramids. This is how you harness the Earth's, whatever magic energy to do crazy stuff. And Atlantis can be a thing because of our technology. Bada bing, bada boom, bada boom. So I believe that the Whills did something very similar. The Whills were a race of beings from either the unknown regions or just something else, and they came to the galaxy as we know it in the Star Wars universe, and basically it was a very primal galaxy back then. The Whills came and showed them, look, that strange energy, that's called the Force. Here's how it works. You see those stars out there, you can travel to them because this is a ship and this is hyperdrive and this is how hyperdrive works, etc., etc. That the Whills gave the galaxy the tools it needed to expand. So I believe that Snoke was one of these Whills, and that his whole thing right now, what he wants is it's a very almost like the tale of Lucifer, the fallen angel. Like, he splintered off from the Whills, from the other Whills, because he had his own agenda, which I will go into later. But first, let me go to you and why. Start off by telling us why you think Snoke is not a Whill.
Well, in terms of Snoke being not a Whill, I think it's. Excuse me a moment. I think it's fairly clear, like, in terms of what we're talking about here, what a Whill is and what you're referring to him as. These Whills, in terms of being these beings that will just do stuff like that. What you're saying. Mm-hmm. There's no evidence of that, really, I think. Like, Snoke has been constantly, there's a reason why they're like, Snoke is Mace Windu, Snoke is Watto, Snoke is whoever else, right? Snoke, I think, is a physical being. It is something that's there, much like the Emperor, and it's somebody that's been scorned or in some type of way to being towards the dark side. I think that is what his pull is. Mm-hmm. So, regardless of the fact, what a Whill is exactly, that's so, like, it's not defined quite yet, what it could be. So, I mean, just start off, so because I haven't looked up the exact definition of the Whill, and that's for the most part what it is, what you're getting into?
No, I that was just speculation on my part.
Speculation,
the only time we've seen them was in that one Clone Wars episode with Yoda,
right.
So they're still very enigmatic.
Yeah, so, I mean, just to think about that fact that, that Snoke would not be like this semi-physical thing. It would be like this type of god or spirit in some type of way. It's like, why would he be on a Starkiller base being projected in that type of way? It was just like, it seemed like, why wouldn't he just be there if he was one of these Whills in some type of way? So, like, I think there's plenty of thoughts as to is this physical thing. He's wearing this gold robe, and the Whills were wearing something similar, perhaps, in that Clone Wars episode. But yeah, that's just my opinion. I think he definitely has to be something physical in this world.
Well, I do believe he is physical, and I believe the Whills all were, like, I don't think they were godlike beings. I think they were just very powerful beings who were physical and mortal for the most part. I mean, people live long in this universe. I think by the time we see them, when Yoda gets to them in that Clone Wars episode, I think that they have already died, and he is communing with their spirits because they are so entrenched in the Force that I think becoming a Force spirit is probably a lot easier for them than it is for like normal Jedi. So I do think Snoke is a physical being as a Will, but I do believe that when the Wills came and showed the galaxy all these wonders, that the regular humans and Rhodians and Hutts or whatever of the galaxy did worship them as gods.
Okay.
Like, wow, look at this tall thing that showed me how to fly amongst the stars. It must be a god. Which a lot of people say is where a lot of the ancient Egyptians' deities came from too. Similar things. Something visited them. Maybe that something looked like a crocodile. Bam. Taweret, the god of Taweret now, because why not?
Yeah.
So
from Lost.
Yeah. So there was that whole, deification of these things, and then one by one, however it happened, they died off. But Snoke was still around, and before I get to that, to further sort of drive home this fact that I think when the Wills came, they were looked at with this kind of reverence, is because of one of my favorite tracks from the Rogue One soundtrack, the very final one called the Guardian of the Wills Suite.
Okay.
And Michael Giacchino did this friggin' amazing thing with that song where, we hear the beginning of the suite, which is what we hear in the film when we first meet Chirrut. And it's that like, da-da. I can't do it right now, but because I have something else in my head, so I can't. But you hear that little ditty, but then when you listen to the full song, it segues into this thing where you get a choir kicks in, and all of a sudden it sounds just like you're watching. Like if you close your eyes, you would think you're watching like an old Cecil B. DeMille movie, like Ben-Hur or the Ten Commandments. Something about religion played on an epic, movie blockbuster scale with like the music in Ten Commandments sounds like the music in this song.
Okay.
And so when I hear that and I see, okay, here's this song from a Star Wars movie and they only use this first part of it, but here comes this other part. It tells me that little part with the choir, which if you haven't listened to that song, go listen to that song. It's called Guardians of the Wills Suite. Yeah. That all of a sudden just fills my head with visions of the old Republic, of all those statues on Jeddah standing upright, of all these people in this ancient, gilded, beautiful marble temple bowing down to a Will and saying like, teach us of the Force. Like I just get that vision in my head, and it literally makes me think like, you know what? Just hearing this song, I have an idea for an old Republic movie right now. So that drives home the idea that for me anyway, that the Wills were deified by the people of the galaxy, and one by one, they died out or whatever happened to them, but Snoke remained, and I believe Snoke is he chose this moment carefully, because the question we have to ask ourselves is why now? Why is Snoke coming now? If he's so ancient, okay. Why now? Why not before episode 1? Why not right after episode 2? Why this moment? And I think it's because this moment in time, in the Star Wars timeline, you've just had about 25 years of this evil empire, this military regime that ruled everything. 25 years of that with no Jedi. And then you've had another 30 years of like the New Republic struggling, still no Jedi. And the First Order slowly forming, except the First Order's more of a cult than it is a government like the Empire was. So you've had all this time with militaries, with governments, with cults, but what has the galaxy been missing? Religion. Mm-hmm. So along comes this guy, Snoke, who at one point was bowed down to like a god, who's saying, okay, now what does the galaxy need more than ever? All this war, all the Jedis are gone, blah, blah, blah. Planets being blown up. What do these people need? They need what they think is a god that they can worship, who can solve all their problems for them, because clearly these mortals have not been doing a good job of it. So I'm going to come along with my big gold robe and my fancy holograms, and I'm going to say, look, you bow to me, you kiss this kyber crystal ring, I'll make your problems go away, because I'm I'm a god.
And sort of a mob boss. That sounds like kiss the ring. But yeah, that's a good point. Like, it could be possible that I still don't see it. Like, the fact that he would be a physical will just seems not correct to me as to what he represents, as to whether he would have been influenced by the wills, as opposed to maybe he was one of these people that was there maybe when some of these wills were around and saw what they were like, and then took the things that he liked about it and then pointed it towards the dark side, because he seems to be very much influenced with the dark side. As far as I know, the wills don't seem to be influenced with the dark side.
I think they're more neutral ground there.
Neutral ground, more like the Bendu type of thing.
Yeah.
Right? So he's taken a side on this. So as to whether he would have seen what they did as the wills, like, back in the past, as to, what they could have been like, he could have just taken some of those things and been like, I'm going to be this physical version of a god, even though I'm not, right? So maybe he chose to act in certain ways like it, but he's also a pure, like, he seems very dark side oriented. Mm-hmm. He's manipulating Kylo Ren, like you would have seen in the previous vote no confidence that we just did on Kylo Ren. He's very blatantly running him that way, regardless of the fact of Kylo Ren maybe getting the light and pulling him towards that side. He's full on the dark side and trying to pluck Kylo Ren. It's like, I'll take you. You have some power. You belong to me. Bring the girl to me. Maybe I can make her join the dark side as well. He's very much oriented in that. So just the fact that he could be semi-influenced by the wills, I could see that. But as to being an actual will, I don't think that's what it is at all.
Well, look at the way the First Order operates compared to how the Empire operates. They look very similar at face value. You have stormtroopers, snowtroopers, TIE fighters, etc.
Yep.
It was definitely the hand-me-downs of the Empire made flesh and then improved upon. Yep. But like I mentioned before, the way the First Order works, and even the name, the First Order, there is something very Jim Jones about the whole situation. There is something very cult-like about the way that organization is run, including just the whole like Third Reich looking scene with Hux giving that speech. Mm-hmm. It is not run like a government. There doesn't seem, they want to wipe out the New Republic. They've made that clear, but they're doing everything in the name of Snoke, and they're doing everything in a way that's very unlike how the Empire ran it, even though it looks like the Empire. The Empire would go to a planet, they would conscript people and be like, hey, do you want to be an officer? Do you want to be a stormtrooper? Come serve our Empire, because we're the bullies. We're going to swagger in town and run everything. So the Empire promised power to people, and people said, sure, if it's going to make me rich, I'll be an Imperial officer. Whereas what we learned in The Force Awakens, even though we didn't really get too much of a glimpse as to the First Order's origins, we did learn, and in Aftermath as well, those stormtroopers weren't conscripted. They were stolen as babies and brainwashed. And when it gets to that point, like, imagine the First Order kills Leia, the First Order kills Mon Mothma if she's still alive, and they kill all the New Republic generals and whatever, and they're like, okay, we're in charge now. We're the new government. Do you really think people on other planets are going to take it sitting down when a ship comes and takes their babies to turn them into stormtroopers? No, people are going to be like, no. So down goes Star Destroyer, down. So I don't think ruling the galaxy as an imperial force, the way Palpatine did, I don't think that's their endgame. I think their endgame is, Snoke wants to be worshipped, and he's going to pretend to be a god as much as possible to get people to trust him. And then it's just gonna be a matter of, okay, now you all bow down to me, and I'll tell you secrets, which he may or may not have. But at the end of the day, Snoke wants what he had before. He wants what was taken away from him for whatever reason. We don't know why the wills we don't know what happened to them, but he got a taste of being a god once, and he wants that again. And he knows now is the right time to do it because people want it. It's just like after 9/11, people needed hope, right? So what happened? We got a lot of idiots creating defense systems that were just there to instill more panic than anything else. But no, what people needed was hope. And what a lot of very smart individuals did at that time was whether it was in media or in entertainment or however they went about doing it, but they gave people hope. They said, look, things are going to be okay. We're all in this together. And, people came out of that stronger. And after, like I said, 25 years-ish of empire and then 30 years of a new republic that's really holding itself together at the seams, these people, and now Hosnian Prime and all those other planets gone, these people need hope desperately. And Snoke is determined. He's like, I'm going to be the one to give it to them, and they're going to thank me for it on hands and knees.
Yeah, I mean, when we're talking about, altogether a regime taking over in some way, so many times throughout our history, there's a lot of religious inspired things that inspire people to do their ways, right? Like you mentioned General Hux's speech. For me, I saw big undertones of Hitler in that speech, the anger and the malice that he was doing and the yelling seemed very Hitler-like to me. And of course, even Hitler had some religious reasons to do what he did in our past. So, to say that, there of course are some type of religious things that influence the First Order to do what they do, and Snoke to do what he does. I could see that absolutely, because in a lot of ways, what do they call the Jedi? They called it a religion. Several people have called the Jedi a religion. I believe it was probably the first time would have been Tarkin, right?
Yeah, either Tarkin or Han. They both said in the same
Did
movie.
they say it as well? Yeah.
They came first.
Yeah. Well, regardless, both of them are referred to in this type of way. And in a way, the dark side and the Sith could be considered in that same way, a semi-religion, right? That all take influence from something. But specifically, Snoke, I believe, is full-on dark. I can see him being more dark side incarnate than an actual Will, somebody who's fighting on both sides of light and dark. There just seems to be so much influence to the dark side there for me to throw out this Will part of it, because the dark side is his influence. The dark side is the influence that he's spreading. He's not spreading any of the stuff that the Wills might be. Again, we don't know what the Wills were preaching exactly, right? All we know is from certain things in the Clone Wars episode that we talked about with Yoda. But specifically for something that's neutral, to be choosing one path or the other is just is to be preaching one path or the other would not be accurate with what a Will is supposed to be. Again, if we're comparing it to the Bendu, he was full on not choosing a side between the light and the dark, right? He was in spoiler alert, if you're not seeing the Rebels season finale, I'm gonna talk a little bit about it right now. Bendu was extremely hesitant towards helping Kanan in that episode. He was very reluctant towards doing that because it required him choosing a side. But in the end, how he did help him was just saying that, this is the planet that he lives on, right? It's going to be destroyed. So if I'm comparing a Will to what the Bendu's choices were, he is very neutral. Will seemed to be very neutral, but Snoke is not neutral. He's full on dark side represent. If he was wearing t-shirts, if he chose to wear some graphic tees, I'm sure it would be dark side to represent, exactly, or dark side forever with the 4, of course. Ooh. Right? But anyway, that's the thing about the Wills, right? So little stuff is known about them. I'd very much be interested to wonder what you guys think. What are the Wills, and is Snoke maybe a Will?
Yeah, we don't know. But like we said in our discussion we had about Rey's staff, about how the Rogue One introduced kyber crystals to the general movie-going public, which gives us the impression that we might see kyber crystals again.
Yeah.
So just throwing it out there, Rogue One also introduced the concept of the Wills to the movie-going public. So who knows? Maybe we're in for the same thing. Maybe we're going to hear about them again.
I would not be surprised if Will showed up again, but I do not think it's going to be connected to Snoke specifically.
Well,
yeah.
We'll see.
This is your time. We said it at the beginning. It's your time. We gave you our points non-confidently. Now you guys have to be confident and tell us who won. Who do you think is Snoke or Will? I'm really interested in hearing what you guys say about that, because maybe you guys have some magazine covers from like something where it says something extra about the Wills that I was not aware of, and maybe Andrew wasn't aware of either. So I'm very curious to see what you guys are going to say.
And if you believe he's not a Will, obviously, like I think everybody's first instinct when they're in the comments is going to be like, no, he's not a Will, he's blank. But because Snoke has been talked about so much, here's what I'd like you to do. If you think he's not a Will, that's cool. But instead of telling us what you think Snoke is, tell us what you think a Will is, because we're all on the same page as far as Wills are. So let's hear what you got to say about that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's I think the more thing. I mean, at this point, again, we've literally heard every single character. I think that's a Will. Like I'm going to mention Ben Quadraneros right now. I think he's Snoke,
or at least the guy who fixed his pod racer is Snoke.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so that's One Row Conference for this episode.
Thank you very much, and stay tuned. We got more stuff coming for you. Until next time, we are one with the Force.
Always.